Greetings, Crestkill community. Dr. Peter Hughes here, your superintendent, and tonight we're going to be discussing the Crestkill K-12 health education standards. Mr. Roth and I will be making this short video to give you an overview of your grade level's curriculum, as well as some things that you need to be made aware of. The purpose of this presentation is really threefold. It's to give you accurate information regarding the new updated New Jersey Student Learning Standards, to provide an overview of the grade level curriculum, and finally to help you decide if you would like to have your child opt out of any of the standards. It is your right as a parent in Crestkill school districts. In fact, when we look back at the history of sex education in New Jersey, it's a right that's existed since the 1980s. That is not changing. If there's ever anything that you're uncomfortable with in the health standards, we can certainly adapt your child's exposure and make sure that you're part of that decision-making process. I also wanted to highlight some changes that have come out in 2018-19, just as an overview. There's been a lot of focus more on sexting, consent, and safe haven included inside of the health standards to make sure that kids have a more contemporary view. Without further delay, I wanted to go into the 4 reasons for the new updated standards, and finally turn you over to Mr. Roth to review the grade level expectations. When New Jersey came together, they really wanted to include 4 items: inclusivity, making sure that the health standards were inclusive of all New Jersey residents, medically accurate, make sure that there's a focus on safety, and finally create open dialogue where kids have safe adults that they can ask questions of. In addition to the parents, but that is a piece of making sure that we have a partnership of support for the kids. Without further delay, here's Mr. Roth.
Hello, 9th grade families. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk to you about the units that constitute the 9th grade health curriculum, which is a course called Educated Choices 9. And there are 4 units of study that occur over the course of the year. The first unit is a unit based on the concept of identity. So this is once again picking up from students' experience in Growth and Development 8 as 8th graders. And in this particular course, a lot of the focus is analyzing the influences of peers, family, media, things such as social norms and culture, on the expression of previously covered terminology like gender, sexual orientation, and identity. So this course extends with differentiating between these terms on a deeper level in the interest of promoting respect for all and analyzing how different influences shape our views and our sense of what gender means to us as individuals, what sexual orientation means, what identity means as individuals. So students will begin to question things like, how do our peers, how do our friends, how does our family orientation, how do things we see in the media, on television, social media, movies, etc., how does society and culture influence how we express our gender and our sexual orientation and what we call ourselves? How do these influences relate to our own views? So students will weigh what they see in the world around them, of their friends, of the media, of their own families, of social norms, and weigh that against their own sense of who they are. Do those views that are presented by the world connect with their sense of identity? Do those presentations of identity that they see around them disconnect, and why? The second unit of study is a unit on emotional health. So that is Unit 2 in Grade 9 Health. It again picks up on students' prior learning. In this course, students will be describing strategies to appropriately respond to stressors in a variety of settings. So we've seen that theme come up for them as younger students as well. So for example, relationship stressors, stressors that affect them within the school setting academically, catastrophic circumstances that unfortunately do occur within the community, deaths, illnesses, etc. ways to successfully navigate those situations from an emotional standpoint. Students will also analyze and adapt mental and emotional health messages and communication techniques to peers and other target audiences. So they'll be looking at how we communicate challenging emotions with people like our friends. What are some techniques that we can call upon within ourselves to do that? Very important as teenagers begin to grow and inevitably find places where communication is challenging for them amongst their own community and their set of interactions as friends. Students will also analyze the short and long-term consequences of sharing sexually explicit images, which we call sexting, with individuals or postings online. This is a super important topic for teenagers in today's world, and it does continue on a base of knowledge that they've had in prior learning at earlier grade levels. The third unit of Educated Choices 9 is a unit on social and sexual health. And in this unit, students will learn what it means to advocate for policies and programs that promote one of our district's baseline foundational values of promoting dignity and respect for people of all genders, gender expressions, gender identities, and sexual orientations. So this understanding in this class will be about applying or looking at things like how do our school policies and programs and how do those in our local community promote the acceptance of all. It'll be looking at, do they promote the acceptance of all, and how can we work to support that as a goal that stems from student voice. So that's one part of the course. Another part will be having students analyze current social issues that affect perceptions of sexuality, of culture, of ethnicity, of disability status, lots of things that do relate to the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making recommendations to address those issues. So students will be asking themselves, how can we apply our learning and understanding to real world circumstances? And hopefully that will present a source of engagement for them as they move through this course of study. On that note, students will also apply thoughtful decision-making processes to evaluate situations and influences that can lead to healthy or unhealthy consequences. So applying prior middle school learning in that respect of looking at their decisions around their own personal health and what outcomes will result. And the fourth and final unit in Educated Choices 9 is a unit called Healthy Relationships 2. In this particular unit, students develop strategies and analyze proper use of digital devices and social media related to short and long-term consequences. So once again, for today's young people, today's students, a super important topic. Examples of things that'll be covered in that regard: cyberbullying and sexting. That is continuing up through upper and elementary school and middle school in terms of foundational curriculum that they've had experience with already. Getting back into those notions of how are things we post digitally, how are things that we put out there, whether it's our text messages and our social media posts, how do they represent permanent records of sorts that end up impacting our future in ways that we need to be cognizant of. In that regard, laws and regulations around sexual consent will be covered in terms of both the digital world and the world of personal interaction. And students will also demonstrate ways to respect boundaries as they relate to intimacy and sexual behavior, which is, again, as they grow into their high school existence, a super important understanding to have. It's one that continues to extend on prior learning with units that were previously titled Our Bodies and Our Boundaries in some of the lower grades. Learning about what's okay and what's not, and the super important at the high school level when our kids are beginning to make choices or making choices in these regards when we're not there. And so the goal of demonstrating those ways to respect boundaries is equipping them with knowledge, communication that can allow them to determine how to conduct themselves when they're in situations independently that will call upon the need for educated choices.
As students matriculate into high school, this is a time for them to start to learn about adult issues and how to best prepare themselves to lead healthy adult lives. As such, most of the topics at this point are open to discussion in the health curriculum. These topics may be about mental and physical and sexual and emotional health, all aspects of becoming a healthy adult. Serious topics around mental health and sexual health will be discussed at this level to help prepare them to make adult decisions. And students will learn about the legal and emotional consequences of their decisions in areas of online behavior, consent, and how to identify and react to unhealthy relationships. Remember, the goal in high school is to prepare them for adulthood and to make sure that they get the tools that they need to remain healthy for life. Here's a sample of the opt-out form. You'll be given units that you can choose the standards that you're uncomfortable with. In this case, it's an emotional health unit. Now, please be advised that things that are a little bit heavier can come out in high school in terms of emotional health, and some things may be triggering at times. So even though you may want them to talk about emotional health, students can always opt themselves out if they're uncomfortable. So that's an overview of our opt-out process in the high school level. Thank you, and let us know if you have questions. Finally, we will have a parent night on February 15th at 6 p.m. You're welcome to join us. Using this QR code, you can actually ask questions of us ahead of time so that we can be sure to hit them on that night. Thank you and have a wonderful day.